humanity is in a state of transition. This is true if we look just at what's happening in the last few years, but it's also true if we look at the last few thousand years. On the one hand, humanity is the most intelligent species in the known universe. And so, humanity should be able to coexist without anyone having to interfere in anyone else's affairs. If the animals are capable of coexisting in order to continue their species, and they don't have any books or laws or descriptions for rituals, everything they do comes from the innate intelligence that's within the animal. So humanity, who is a lot more intelligent, should be able to trust their innate intelligence even more. And yet, in reality, we see that humanity is not capable, with all their intelligence, to interact with life in a way that they don't offend each other. And this is after we already have thousands of books filled with laws and guidance and ideas. And so humanity is in a state of transition. So transition from having to be directed, ruled, instructed, to having the ability and the privilege to rely on their own innate intelligence for guidance. And so in a period of transition, there are certain goals of development that are going to allow for the transition to take place. And every single one is on a different level when it comes to being intelligent enough to direct their own existence, to direct their own energy, to manifest from the infinite light into whatever their intelligence deems appropriate. So each one, according to their own level, needs guidance. Guidance so that humanity can leave the system of rulership and teachings and go into a path that allows for the full potential of every single individual to be realized. Because no longer will they comply with any instructions that are there for the general public and don't really relate to the detailed circumstances of each individual. So when we do leadership for the masses, when we create structures of thought for the masses, it's not possible that some, at least, of those masses will not be hurt by that way of thinking, by that interaction with life. Every individual has their own specific settings designed by the cosmos specifically in accordance with the moment and place of their birth and the heritage from where they received the ticket into life, the seed that creates life, the tree of life, how they gained access to that tree is what defines what type of access they have and how they're going to interpret their experience and interact with it. So each one is very specific, is very individual. Each one needs to have their own approach by the very nature of how they are. If they're copying anyone else, then they're violating their nature. So humanity needs guidance, instruction, to get out of this mode and into a mode where they are free. They are free because they interact directly with the one that created them. This freedom was granted to Klal Yisrael by Har Sinai. On Mount Sinai, the intelligence that dwells within reality revealed itself to a very large group of humans, a very big family, a family that was designed specifically for this purpose, to bring freedom to humanity. Nevertheless, there are people amongst that group that didn't belong to the family, and they didn't keep their freedom for very long. They had 40 days of freedom. After 40 days, they were looking for leadership. They were reverting back to the Egyptian mode of thinking. They were reverting back to the ways that were forced upon civilization when the first kings started popping up and taking ownership over people and land. And so, to train humanity means to speak to each individual on their own level. To teach. To teach means to dress up the concepts that are too deep, too subtle, too distant for the young mind to understand, and to allow that individual access to the wisdom gradually. And so the method of teaching a brain that is not intelligent enough to understand the real nature of life is by metaphor. Metaphor is dressing up concepts that are too deep, too subtle to even express, and creating ideas, creating concepts that can resemble the logic, the formula that's trying to be taught within a metaphor, so that as the mind grows, it can understand the depth of the meaning more and more deeply until it can get to the source of the matter, to the reason of why the ideas were being dressed up into a metaphor in the first place. So this way of teaching, this way of evolving the human perception was what we now know as ritual. Ritual was the capacity to take very deep ideas that are at the root of how the spiritual interacts with the physical, how the intelligence interacts with life. And through ritual, we can allow even the simplest of minds to participate in the service that will eventually lead that individual to realize his own intelligence, so that he no longer needs a leader, he no longer needs a teacher, because he gained access to the intelligence that dwells within. The intelligence that taught all teachers. The intelligence that created the brains of all teachers. The intelligence that created our own brains and is operating our brains this very moment. If that intelligence ceases, then nothing knows what to do. Nothing knows how to be. And so the center of these rituals, the rituals that contain the ladder of understanding from complete ignorance, who will interpret the rituals to mean one thing, all the way to the wise, the leaders who truly understand the meaning of the ritual, understand its purpose, understand what it's trying to convey. All of them will gain by interacting with life through these rituals. The rituals will assist the minds and the hearts so that they can perceive reality more deeply, so they can place importance where the designer of the universe placed importance. So they can place importance where the functions of their body place importance, where their brains and their hearts place importance, so they can understand themselves more deeply. So this center was the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash was a place where they performed different rituals that represented the deepest and the loftiest of ideas that humanity can interact with. And these rituals, when performed by those who understood its meaning, would actually create within the world of spirit the reality that was being represented by the ritual. So it's the sacredness of the spirit that's performing the ritual that's making that ritual real, that's giving it its spiritual power. The same ritual performed by someone else has no meaning whatsoever, because it has no spiritual investment that can create in the world of spirit. So the spiritual level of the one performing the ritual is what dictates its power. And this power kept humanity and the spiritual forces that create humanity to remain in peace. This was the purpose of these rituals, is to bring peace between the forces that create us and our own perceptions. The forces that create us are all over the cosmos. Every star, every planet has an influence on how we are, and our own perception, the one we're very familiar with, the one we dwell within, that might come into argument with these forces, that might come into conflict with itself through the influence of these forces. And so the Beis HaMikdash represents a place where the priests are going to bring peace to all the forces and humanity that's created by these forces. And so now, to get started with the Mishkan, after it was prepared, everything was prepared according to the forces that create life. And now it's time to perform the rituals. So Moshe Rabbeinu teaches for 7 days how the rituals are to be performed. And this, so that the people who have cried out for a leader, who didn't appreciate the freedom that they were given by having direct access to the innate intelligence, who weren't mature enough to know how to rely on that intelligence, and therefore lost their faith as soon as their leader disappeared for a little too long. Now they will have a connection to the deepest realities through the rituals, through the services, through the symbolic representations of what should have happened innately inside of them, so that they can have direct access to their true nature. And so, on the 8th day is the day when the high priest takes over. The high priest is going to perform the rituals in order to demonstrate to the masses that the wisdom can bridge the gap between the forces that create us and our own perception. The wisdom can align whatever is not aligned within humanity through the knowledge of the truth represented by the rituals. And on that very day, the sons, the 2 sons of the high priest, Nadav Avihu, they go into perform a ritual that they were not instructed to perform. But they weren't simple people. They understood the nature of the rituals. They wanted to gain access to the depth of perception and truth that was available through these rituals. But the purpose of the rituals was not for individual gain. The purpose was to reconcile the masses with their source. And so any misunderstanding, any lack of authenticity that is present when one enters such high levels can cause damage to the body until the spirit can no longer dwell within that body. And this is what happened to the two sons of Aaron. So we see the power of these rituals, even though the rituals that if anybody else would do, it would be meaningless. When these rituals are done with the right intention, the spiritual power of a human being awakens, and it causes very extreme effects in reality. It changes the direction of how reality is going to manifest, what's going to take place on this planet. We all participate in these rituals. And according to our individual levels, the rituals that we perform have different levels of impact on reality. So every time we pray, every time we do a commandment, every time we do a service in order to increase our spiritual awareness, in order to align with reality, the impact of what we're doing depends on our own level, on our own intention and dedication and belief and authenticity. How much of what we're doing are we doing fully present, knowing what we're doing, feeling what we're doing, experiencing what we're saying, and how much of it is being done just by habit? And our world of perception is not there. Our spirit is not there. If the spirit is not there, we're not doing anything. Because it's the spirit that's doing. The spirit is the kavanah, is the perception, is the intention. So in order for us to gain intelligence, we need to do what we do and say what we say with all of us. Then we can start understanding ourselves and we can become aware of what's inside of us. If we do things and we don't have intention, if we say things and we don't mean them, then we're confusing our own spirit. We're creating settings within our world, within our perception, that are not loyal to who we really are. The goal is to gain access to your own heart. And to do that, we need to be authentic. We need to be real with ourselves and with whoever possible. Not with everyone can we be real in this world, but we should surround ourselves with people as much as we can that can allow us to be real so that we can discover our hearts. If we're not discovering our heart, if we're simply copying what others are doing, if we don't have intention for what we create, then as far as the spiritual world is concerned, we're not doing anything. And that's a waste of life. That's a waste of our essence. If we're not spiritual, we might not know what that means. But as soon as we become spiritual, and eventually we all become spiritual because eventually we lose our senses. They get taken away from us together with our organs and our limbs. And then all of us become spiritual. So when we do become spiritual, we will realize how much we've lost by not being aware of our true nature. And so today we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. We don't have a place where we have authentic wisdom and we can go and be inspired and reconcile with the truth. Today it's up to each individual to search within themselves, to find their own core, to find a place from where they receive intelligence, from where they can improve their intelligence, from where they can become more authentic, more real. And the more we can align with reality, the more we can understand the depth of the metaphor, the depth of the ritual, the meaning that's trying to be conveyed for thousands of years in order for humanity to wake up, in order for humanity to realize the true nature of its predicament. The more we can invest in understanding ourselves, the more we're going to be ready and worthy to participate in a reality that doesn't require any rulers. It doesn't require any laws. It doesn't require any descriptions. Because all these things were given to humanity in order to heal a wound. And when that wound is healed, then all these things that they were trying to convey to us will be self-evident. No one will ever forget them. Because at the depth of the ritual, humanity is just trying to be itself. There's no new information that we need to know in order to be who we are. We need to forget a lot of misinformation that has caused us to think that we are something else. So may we all merit that the truth be revealed to us, that we find the deeper nature of who we are and what our purpose is. And this will lead us to true freedom. This will allow us to find peace, even while within the physical body. And when we can do that collectively, that will be the final redemption. May it happen soon.
Yeah, I just want to ask, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. I just want to ask if it's, you're saying more and more people are realizing the God-given freedom to people. Yet, if you look around, and in many countries, Arab countries, you have all dictators in China, Russia, even the so-called democracies, as you said before, they're not necessarily taking care of every individual. They're taking maybe care of most of the people, but there are lots of people left behind. So are we going in the right direction at least? It seems like not really.
We don't have to. We don't have to go in the right direction because it's not about slowly letting humanity free. It's about a drastic shift in how we see what's happening over here. It's about a change in consciousness that has to come from the spiritual realm. So it's not simply that people will decide that, oh, let's all be friends and I'm going to give you and you're going to give me and then everybody can be happy. If we don't change our nature, if we don't change how we interact with ourselves, we don't change how we see what it means to be human, then any types of arrangements are just more laws, more complications that are never going to work. This is why all the different revolutions and all the different systems of running countries in different ways that might seem to be better to humanity, they don't necessarily turn out to be better for humanity, because as long as the attributes are not the way that they're supposed to be, we cannot arrange a way that's going to work. Any arrangement is going to be forced, and every force has a counterforce. Every force is causing some type of damage. So democracy is another way of interacting, but still it's run by people, politicians or judges, that based on their interpretation are forcing others to behave a certain way. And this is not the nature of humanity. This is an artificial state that is required, as long as humanity is not intelligent enough, to raise children, to raise themselves in a way that they know how to interact with reality and they don't cause damage to reality, to themselves or to others. So this is the state of humanity. Humanity is not where we're supposed to be. Humanity is not in a consciousness where they can have freedom. So as long as they're not there, there's going to be those who are going to become the enforcers of whatever needs to be enforced. When humanity will change their way of thinking, then it simply won't be necessary. It's not going to be a new type of law that allows different things. It's going to be a different approach.
So if it's not slow and educating, one person at a time, now I know, now you know, now I'm going to teach somebody else, and he's going to know, I'm going to teach my children. If it's not gradual, if it's not, then how is it going to happen?
Today things happen in crazy ways. We don't have to wonder for him how he's going to do what he's going to do. We just know for sure that he's going to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have created us. He's not wasting our time. So now that we're here, we know it's going to happen, and we want to try to get on the wagon as soon as possible. And then whatever happens, we'll find out.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? You're welcome. Good Shabbos, Reb David.
Shabbos.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Have a good Shabbos.